So there's a big debate going on in the Tesla community right now about whether the company should initiate a share buyback of $5 to $10 billion. As of the most recent quarter, Tesla has $21 billion of cash on its balance sheet. They just made $5.1 billion in operating cash flow, $3.7 billion in earnings in a single quarter. So now a lot of shareholders amidst this, first of all, stock market decline, which is bringing down Tesla stock. Tesla stock's down, I want to say, almost 50% from its all-time highs. I'm trading about 200 per share now, 700 billion market cap, if you assume about 3.5 billion shares outstanding. So I don't know. My high-level take on all this is that Tesla's way too young to be launching a share buyback. And that $5 to $10 billion on a $700 billion market cap is between 1% to 2% of your outstanding share count. And that just seems like not worth it at all. Elon on the conference call is talking about how there's 3 million cars on the road that are Teslas, that are electric. And yet there's 2 billion gasoline cars on the road. And that's the real goal of Tesla, is to transition us off of fossil fuels and get rid of those. So I don't understand how, if we're so early along in that goal towards achieving that progress and becoming a company at maturity and achieving the mission, why we would already start kind of playing this accounting game to deploy capital back to shareholders instead of building more factories or somehow investing in something that would, accelerate that goal. So that's the first thing. The second thing is also, Tesla is so new, and I think right now the company's getting a huge premium valuation for its earnings, which I think in some ways are justifying because of the software layer and because of the growth. But on other ways, I think Tesla has sort of been given this premium in earnings, which I don't really support. So if you think about what Tesla is at a factory level, once they build their factory out and they max out capacity at that factory, they're making a ton of cash flow because they've already spent all that money on building out the factory. So there's sort of this cyclical moment with factories, especially Tesla, with cash flow, like huge cash flow burn up front for the factory. And then all we've seen so far is factories constantly operating at maximum output, churning out massive cash flow. Well, if they're not operating at maximum output, these factories are going to turn into huge liabilities. So I'm just thinking of a scenario where if the world economy crumbles and Tesla, let's say, has a year of zero sales, will we have enough cash in our bank to support all of those factories? That's going to take billions and billions of dollars of negative free cash flow. So we're not even at this super safe level of cushion. Like if you're thinking about Tesla, I've been investing in Tesla for 10 years. Just 4 years ago, in 2018, it seemed like the company was on the cusp of bankruptcy and we had only a couple $1 billion in the bank and we were about to go under. So I just think the systematic structural risk, like that wasn't that long ago. So I just think there's so much uncertainty in the world right now that I just think it doesn't make sense to like squish the balance sheet super thin, especially when we're just talking about 1% to 2% of the share count. Like if the stock price was way lower, I would say, okay, that makes more sense. But also the stock price is way lower probably because the business is hurting and we'd be really glad we didn't do a stock buyback at this price. So anyway, I want to finish the point on the earnings, which is that I think our earnings are sort of a little bit, I don't know. I just feel like you should normalize the earnings of an automotive company or something that's like Tesla, it's vertically integrated, operating these factories. You got to assume they're not always going to be operating at this maximum scale. And yes, Berlin and Austin are still ramping, but in terms of Fremont. And so I don't know. I just think as good as Tesla's earnings look now, if I'm putting on my doomsday cap and thinking about actually how to run the company, I want to prepare for a bunch of really shitty quarters with stuff that we'll never be able to foresee, just so that we're prepared, because I think the survival of Tesla is so much more important than reducing our share count by 1% to 2%. Another thing is like, when you think about Elon and who he is and how he deploys capital, to me, like playing the share buyback game, which yes, can increase the ROI, seems like maybe the mathematically smart move, but I think that's just a huge intellectual debate because it depends on what we could do with the capital. And I'd argue there's nobody better in the world to spend $5 to $10 billion with a huge return on capital than Elon Musk. So maybe that we can't hire enough engineers, so we can't deploy it fast enough. But I don't know. It feels like the $5 to $10 billion that Tesla will be spending to buy back its own stock, we should be spending to get to Mars. So I don't know. And yes, even if you look at Tesla's share count over time, like they've been steadily diluting it. So it would be nice to sort of curb that dilution or mitigate it with a little share buyback. But at the same time, Tesla's dilution has really been minimal given the amount of per share growth we've seen in revenue, profit, cash flow. The growth in those three metrics has dwarfed the increase in outstanding share count. So I actually think Tesla's done a tremendous job managing it, and I'm not worried about the dilution. So I don't think that's a big deal either. I don't know. It feels like it's too early. And Tesla is such a crazy exciting growth company that initiating the share buyback now seems too early. The only way where this makes sense is if Tesla is at sort of this bottleneck, not constrained by capital. They're constrained by engineers. They're constrained by Elon's time to focus on ideas and like design them and create a team that can execute them at his level. I don't know. But it seems like Tesla's constrained on some level beyond capital. And if that's the case, maybe they can balance this tightrope act of slightly buying back a little bit more stock, which if they're going to do, and now I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, playing both sides. If they're going to do the stock buyback, okay, let's do 5 billion and let's wait till the stock price hits 150 or something before we start buying, because I still think we're trading at a very high multiple on very high inflated earnings. And yes, there's a ton of growth, but like, I just feel like we should be safer. Like, it just, to me, there's like zero upside of doing this buyback other than appeasing a bunch of people on Twitter who I think are really thinking really short term about their portfolios, not about like, if I actually own Tesla and was thinking about what I want like this company to be in 100 years, like it doesn't make sense to tinker around with the share buyback, waste everybody's time thinking about it, or should we just be focused on our mission, which we're so far away from achieving? Like, I think that's the move. And I think this buyback is a massive distraction. And so, and it'll bump the share price in the short term. But, you know, maybe Elon is trying to keep the share price at a certain level because he's got to sell more to do the Twitter finesse. That's why he's saying he might want to do a buyback, even though he really knows it's a bad idea. Like, there's a lot of levels to this. But I just, in my gut, I wanted to say something to y'all. First of all, I miss making videos. But second of all, I just feel like this share buyback is the wrong move. And it's been beautiful to watch Tesla become a cash flow machine and pump out billions and billions of dollars of earnings. Like, that's incredible. When I started investing in the company, they were worth $3 billion market cap. That was Tesla's valuation. And that everyone thought that was crazy. And now they made $3.7 billion in profit in a quarter. Like, that's what happens when you invest in over 10 years. I never thought Tesla would have got this big. So it's taken a moment for me to like be like, whoa. We're going from growth mode, burning capital that just seems like yesterday, company's almost out of business. Everyone's telling them they're going to fail, to like now we're doing a share buyback, even though the stock price is up 30x. Like, I just feel like Tesla forgot where they came from and how quickly shit can turn, and how that 5 to 10 billion just being a safety reserve for the 1 to 2% chance that shit goes haywire versus the 1 to 2% reduction in outstanding share count is a trade that I think long-term, you keep the cushion. If you're thinking short-term, you'll do the 1 to 2% buyback. Another thing that Tesla could do with the capital, this is just an idea, go vertical. Start investing in lower ROIC projects. Like, look at what we're doing in Texas to set up a mass amount of batteries to buffer the grid and literally start selling energy. Like, I think that's such a good thing Tesla could do for the world, is to buffer all of our grids from extreme weather events with $5 to $10 billion and actually already operate those things profitably. And I think so those things would make money now in the near term, but also just strategically, as the world gets less stable, as energy becomes more and more important, I think that would be genius to set up now. So when I think about Tesla and how to deploy capital right now, I'm like 5 to 10 billion on buying back stock when we could build a whole city's worth of solar panels and create the best marketing project the world's ever seen by literally creating this city from the ground up that's fully sustainable, designed, built by Tesla. Like, that's so inspiring and epic vision. But instead we're going to buy back the stock. So we could be going to Mars, but I don't know. The Mars thing is complicated because SpaceX and Tesla are different, but deep down, it just feels like Tesla could be doing something that's so exciting and so epic with that $5 to $10 billion. And if anyone's going to scheme it up, it's going to be Elon. And I just think they could start by selling energy. That would be huge. And building a huge amount of batteries and solar panels and start stabilizing the grid. Well, I know you have some schemes on this. Should Tesla do a stock buyback or not? Like, what do you feel about this? I want to know like thoughtful, things from other long-term Tesla shareholders on like, this is a kind of an interesting decision. And especially for like a finance nerd, like this is fascinating stuff to cover, that a company that's so early in its long-term, like at a high level, Tesla's a company so early in its long-term growth phase, yet so profitable that they're going to be able to pull off a stock buyback this early, which would never have been fathomable before, but we're in HyperChange. So Tesla's about to do it because they're so disruptive and they have so much growth left, but they're already still so profitable. Their biggest bottleneck isn't cash, it's engineers. And that's a crazy thing to consider. And maybe if that's really the case, then shit, I say we buy back $5 billion, but wait till the stock price hits 150 to do it. Okay. Galley out.